on? We're good? Somewhat good? Who knows? It's amazing, right? Let's talk about what's realistic, what's not realistic. All right, let's kill that one. There we go. Let's kill that. We're good. Comments, we're good. Welcome aboard, everybody. I know it was a little bit of a slower start as that goes. Let's start it a little bit this way. Oh, you still got the music playing. A little background music, huh? Hey, so what is realistic? Man, what a question that is. I talk about doing this thing, right? What's realistic? Is it realistic for me to go to a studio and do it? Not at this point in time. Does it make sense? Perhaps it does. Maybe I'd actually have my hair combed and stuff like that, but it's not realistic from a time standpoint. So it's not realistic. What else can be realistic or not realistic? You know what? If there was time that you could carve out, going into a studio and doing something makes a whole lot of sense. And when we take on projects, I'm like, what are we doing? Are we like taking on too much, too little, too little? Is there actually such a thing as too little? For those friends of mine, I really wonder about that whole thing. You know, there was I spoke to Dave actually before. We used his name on that one. And I was like, all right, Dave. So I asked him about doing something. Next thing you know, he's got me doing something. And then he's going out and he's got a whole big event coming up and the rest of that. And it just goes. It just goes. So it just feeds on itself. And I think that's the most exciting thing, but that's also the most troubling thing too, when we take on projects and we get started on something. So is it realistic to aim for something? Yeah, absolutely. You should. Don't stop. Keep going. All those taglines, everything else that goes along with that. But be prepared. As much of that as possible. Be prepared. Be prepared for all of those things that are going to come up your and you're like, what in the world? Where did that come from? I can't believe it took so long. And it actually does. It always does. Even something simple yesterday that I was working on. It was really straightforward, working with a group of people. It just took longer to do than anticipated, but it got done because it was a have to get done. That was a have to get done. Then is the want to get done, and keep going. Keep going. So frame out the frame out your timeline on that one before you go into other things. Keep equating in my head too this whole idea of this drag strip and everything else that goes along with that thing. Is it realistic? And I can tell you when I got started with this crowd, I didn't know. It sounded great. It definitely did. I was coming in with the additional research that I've been doing with it, and I have certainly come in on the tail end of a lot of work, of a lot of communication with a lot of people in a lot of different places. And there is an absolute interest for it, without a doubt, from the racing community, without a doubt. And I'm not. Let's define racing community. By the way, is there a tremendous interest on this thing from the professional, top fuel, all the rest of that stuff? I think they think it's a good idea, but uh, I don't know. We're not building a motorsports park over here that's going to seat a thousand people. That's going to seat 100,000 people and stuff like that. That is just absolutely not happening. No way, shape, or form is that going to take place. But the idea of something smaller, manageable, local, good quality, good quality local, nice combination on that one. Is that realistic? Yeah, I'm beginning to truly see that it is. A lot of pieces to put together on it, without a doubt. But with some of the stuff that's been done, most of what has been done already, the conversations, the connections, everything like that, it's like, yeah, it certainly can. It certainly can. But it takes time, and time is probably the most challenging roadblock that always comes up. And this goes into projects, nonprofit efforts, goes into, I don't know, maybe even doing your yard work. Certainly in careers, it's like, how much do you really want to see it be? How much? effort are you willing to put into this thing? How much time are you willing to devote to it? And the biggest one I think is what sacrifices are you really willing and able to make to get there? And sometimes that becomes the challenge and a half. How much can you do? Can you afford to do it? Can you afford the time or can you afford the money? And I think that's part of where we come into the problems with um, some students at the look. I even run into situations with students in high schools, but college too. It's like, oh, you can't go to a college; it's too expensive, or even high school. Well, I've heard stories of students not being able to devote their time, energy, and effort, no money, time, energy, and effort into really embracing a full high school experience, the full high school learning experience, because they got other obligations, family obligations, things to do. Maybe you don't hear of it as much, still as out there. I mean, we certainly did going back, I don't know, 50 years, 100 years, stuff like that. Would have gone to school, but had to work the farm, had to feed the family, right? I mean, you talk about needs, right? If your family is a farming family and you needed to work the fields, do the crops and stuff like that, you had to do it. You just had to do it. Now that situation is not really there, but still, a lot of folks have got a lot of obligations to get in the way of them accomplishing something. That's kind of a shame if we don't help those people out, help to eliminate, reduce at least some of those situations, and um, make that one less thing, to get through, for them to get through in order to go and achieve their goals, in order for them to further those careers, in order to get that full high school experience, maybe get a college experience. And I am so lucky, blessed, thrilled to continue to run across different scenarios where that stuff is available. Buddy of mine works over at one of the colleges. I didn't speak to him in advance, so I got to keep the names out of the whole thing, even the college. I don't want to go that way. But I spoke to him about what his role is. His role is to find people that have the mental aptitude, the brains to go and achieve great things in the technology world that just might not have the resources, the financial resources to do it. That's his job. How cool is that, right? He's going out. I mean, I'm sure there's challenges there too, when you got to tell somebody no. Uh, but he's out there. He's eliminating roadblocks for people. Eliminating roadblocks. That's a beautiful thing. It really is. In the high schools and stuff like that, it's like we could do more. I think we could do a lot more as a society, from a community standpoint, from a business standpoint, from just the overall support, feel good, if you want to call it that standpoint too, is to put more energy into these high schools. We can't change the system. We can't change some obligations, some challenges that individual people have. Not going to be able to change that, but maybe we could help out in some way to make it better, make it a bit easier. There's a lot of nonprofits that do that. A lot of nonprofits that do that. Schools, we could do more there too. I know we could do more there. How to really do that? Well, I mean, my personal focus has been on doing these career days. It's an every once in a while thing, and going out. Is that going to make a big difference? I hope it makes a difference. I don't think it's going to make a big difference, but you never know. But if 20 people show up, 20 businesses show up, wow, all of a sudden it makes a much bigger difference than one. Absolutely. You know, it definitely does. And there's an event coming up too, at the Small Business Development Center. We're going to be talking about that. That's the first Thursday of the next month, which would be March. But 9 o'clock in the morning at the Small Business Development. Actually, it's online through the Small Business Development Center. We can talk about that. How you can get involved with these schools. Some of the folks that are out here, are just doing great stuff. Ron Loveland with the manufacturing committee doing great stuff with these career days. Another one that's doing great stuff is that the Cradle of Aviation. They're using that location to host many of these things. Kudos to them for seeing that. And I could tell you that Suffolk Community College is another one, big stuff over there. They've got one of the auto companies offering scholarships to students going into the program. And then the cost of school to rate of pay afterwards is great. It's really terrific. Is it possible to get some of these student loans? Should be. And it's not astronomical numbers too. It's much smaller. And given the fact that they have a job placement rate, I don't know if it's 100%. You got to get the statistics for them, but it's phenomenal. Phenomenal. If you're good at what you're doing, I'm sure the placement rate is phenomenal. And then the amount of time it would take you to pay back any loan if you got to take out a loan. That makes sense. That makes sense. Look, going out getting student loans for $100,000 and then getting a job that's going to pay you 30. I don't know, man. That's a challenge. $100,000 student loans and you get a job that pays you $400,000. That's doable. That's doable. That ratio, that's a doable ratio. Maybe we should fix the college system, college course system. We could assist the high school system, but flat out fix the cost of colleges. But what's realistic and not realistic in all of these things? For many people, getting something done is just not realistic because they got other stuff, all those have tos. And finding a balance between the have tos and the want to do's and what you want to accomplish, challenge. Definitely a challenge. Look, even just many of the things that are out there, just absolutely a challenge. But having that proper team surrounding you, whether it's the business in the community in the high schools, whether it's, let's say, a real relook at the cost of college, making it much more affordable for people and not affordable from loans, but affordable from a cost standpoint. We're going to raise salaries to whatever. You raise salaries all over the place. That pushes other expenses up. But it's a matter of where is that money going? Is it justifiable? Is it justifiable to spend $100,000 on a college career to earn 30? No, that's not justifiable. I think that's crazy, as that goes. But our own personal goals, staying with that one. What about our own personal goals? All right. You take on a project, best be prepared for it to take longer than expected, longer than you anticipated. Because you know why? We go into these things with these, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I am so guilty of this one. I'm so guilty of this. Yeah, we could do that. Well, when I got started with the car stuff, I had no idea. I had no clue in the world. When I led that panel discussion to talk about the growth opportunities on the island, MacArthur Airport, Ronkonkoma, and Long Island needs a drag strip, and the idea of a drag strip out there with that report, I had no idea. Actually, I had very little idea about all three of them. All I was doing was asking questions. I wasn't answering anything. I was leading the panel discussion. I was the moderator of it. The only thing I needed to know was what questions I was going to ask, and ad lib, of course, the follow-up stuff as that goes. But that's it. Folks on the panel, man, they were all dedicated to their cause. So that was easy. And I knew they were going to be longer answers. That was easy. But those questions I had, those were absolutely valid questions. And maybe some of them were simplistic. It didn't really make a difference, but I didn't know. Now, all of a sudden, it's moved up a little bit. I've gotten to know a lot more about that Long Island needs a drag strip. I've gotten to know more about how challenging it is to get something done in the airport, the continued growth over there. Seeing, as that continues on, getting the airlines in. Ronkonkoma, I've also learned a few of the challenges that they had. I had no idea unless I started doing these things. But they're all moving forward. MacArthur Airport, great regional airport. True, they're getting there. That Ronkonkoma continues to grow, continues to build up, getting there. It might even be making some major shifts over there and moving the terminals on one side of the airport to the other side of the airport. It's a big deal. Even if you're local or not local, whatever, just imagine this, right? You have a full airport, full size regional airport, and you can take all those passenger terminals that are on one side of the airport and bring them all the way over to the other side of the airport. Big project. Unbelievably big project. Might be in the cards. Might be in the cards. And then the drag strip stuff. Ask those questions. Might be in the cards? Yeah, it is. Longer than expected? Oh, I'm sure it is for them. I'm sure that thought process started as soon as National Speedway closed. It's like, okay, that's closing. Where do we go now? And they've come up with various ideas, and they've spoke to various politicians, elected officials, other folks within the in the arena, the racing community, all the rest of that stuff. Tremendous support from most of those people. Not everybody, but most of those people. But I didn't know. Not until you get going. Not until you get going. And then you get going. So that's where that one's at, my friends. It just is a challenge as that goes. And I'm sure our presidents that we're celebrating President's Day with had their own little things in there. Can you imagine Lincoln, man? Abraham Lincoln. What a story that is. Talk about perseverance. What a terrible ending to that story. But what about that? One thing after another, and to get into finally to get into politics, after being a lawyer and living out in Illinois, and then also going to Washington. What kind of a trip that is, right? I mean, we're talking horse and buggy stuff here. We're talking a long time ago. That's a big trip. I know every time we complain about traffic or it's traffic, it took me extra 20 minutes. Yeah, you didn't have to go from from Illinois to Washington D.C. It's crazy, crazy stuff. But I worked through it. Worked through a lot of challenges. I had a lot of personal challenges along the way too. We did it. Willing to go for that goal. Willing to go for that goal. I know how many people said, nah, that's crazy. You can't do that. Look at you. You weren't born in that world. Maybe you didn't have the education for that world. Look at you. Could you do that? Communication side of things. Can you imagine this one too? I'm going to give a speech. It's going to be short. Short. And we have a president. We had a president. I forgot who it was. Maybe my wife Karen can chime in on this one. But I think we had a president that gave his inaugural speech. Right, the inaugural speech to I am president. Kind of speech, and it was on an unbelievably cold day. Unbelievably cold day. He spoke for so long. Afterwards, I think he got pneumonia and died. Not Lincoln. What is it? Very short speech and done. And, of course, the joke on that whole thing is you remember Lincoln's speech. You have no idea who gave the other speech that did go on and on and on and on and on. So, what do you think his speechwriter said? You can't give a short speech like that. And when he finished, I wonder how many people were standing around there waiting for him to continue on. Never did. He had a goal. He knew what he wanted. He absolutely got a lot more than he bargained for in that presidency. But he knew. He knew you should be that focused on your goals. You know what that is. That clear in what it is you're trying to accomplish. And don't stop. Don't stop. Talk about it. Share some things about it, because then all of a sudden resources come to you. How that happens, you can speak to whomever you want, but it happens. And then people show up. You just never expect it. It's like, how'd you even know about this whole thing? And it's a friend of a friend, a connection of a connection. It's the whole networking kind of a thing. People find out about what it is that you're doing, and they'll latch on to what it is that you want to accomplish, and it happens. And then you find out that they're doing something that just kind of works. And that was that conversation I had with Dave today. I called him up about something that we were thinking about doing a while ago. Then he tells me about something he's got coming up. Turns out there might be a very symbiotic relationship on that. I mean, Dave's all about the, goal setting and things like that, and how to work through different issues and keep going. Well, there's a group I know that actually does that thing, and they help to reduce some of those roadblocks that people have by doing their thing and helping others be able to do their thing. And David is looking to interview somebody at this event. Wow. See, it kind of grows. And then that event is filled with an audience and other speakers too that are all, hey, you could go out and you could do anything you want if you put your mind to it. I'm sure we'll gather a little bit more interest in this from that crowd too. And you'll do the same thing every time. You're going to continue to build that crowd. You're going to continue to build that audience. You will absolutely find people that will follow you, which is great, and they'll support you, which is even better, and then work with you by your side. So I'm kind of really happy here about being able to, as I've been told, become an integral part of the Long Island Needs Attraction. And today I got a phone call from somebody I just never expected to get a phone call from. Creates another opportunity. Didn't know. It was one of these sidebar conversations I had with somebody, and then they passed it along, and then I got the phone call today. Unbelievable. It just truly is. Am I going to help to achieve my goal, their goals, other people's goals? Yeah. And that's the final trick on the whole thing. It's being able to listen sometimes. It's not just about talking about stuff. It's being able to listen. And close with an event that's coming up over here that really helped me to listen more and also speak more. But years ago, I got started interviewing people. Did Blog Talk Radio, interviewed people. I was looking to interview people I didn't know. The idea behind that was that I wanted to improve my interviewing skills. I was volunteering with the town of with my local township, the town of Brookhaven, and we were doing we were doing job fairs and we were doing business expos. I was doing Blog Talk Radio at the time. So what happens at those job fairs and the business expos is I would walk around the floor, have a guy with a camera following me. Great job. And then we would record it. And the interviews would go quickly, really quickly, because it would be generally, it's a 2-hour event. Generally speaking, we'd have 125 or so different vendors at that event. And then a whole lot of people walking around in between. The job fair was a little bit different because if somebody was speaking to that company at the table, I didn't really want to interrupt. So that was different. But the business expo. So think about this. It was an event that lasted 2 hours and it had about 125 businesses potentially to get to. Plus all those people walking around. Remember, it's a business event. That means the folks that are there are networking, knew a good amount of them, and they were happy to jump on camera or grab somebody, because here's what we didn't do and couldn't do. There was no way I'd be able to reach 125 people in 120 minutes. Do the math, let alone all the other folks in between. So we kept the camera on. I didn't know who I was going to speak to. I didn't know when it was going to come up, but I knew I needed to get better at that. I wanted to practice that. That was my goal. So I did the Blog Talk Radio, interviewed people I did not know. That was my goal, was to improve my interviewing skills on folks I did not know. Easy to interview a friend. Not as easy to interview someone you don't know. But here's what it helped me do. It really helped me listen to whatever they were saying to bring in the next question. Now, in the world of achieving goals, here's what happened now. It's not that I'm interviewing everybody, but I'm listening to what it is that they really want to say, listening and hearing what it is that they really want to accomplish. And if I could do that, and listen to what they want, figure out if what they want and what I want are symbiotic, not the same, but symbiotic, man, that's good. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. Listen more. Listen to those people that you are interacting with when you go and talk about your goal. Listen to those people you just are around more than others because you are a reflection of those five people surrounding you. But chances are they are in line with what you are thinking also. But speak to those five people. And when somebody new comes along, find out what it is that they're doing. Find out it is why they're doing what they're doing. See what their issue is, because it's that issue really becomes the common ground. Because if they're trying to attract more people to their effort, and you're trying to attract more people to your effort, and it's a slightly different effort, it's a slightly different goal, but the effort's the same, and you can help each other achieve goals because you want the same people for different reasons, or you got the same message you want to deliver out, but for different reasons. That's where it happens. So practice your listening skills. Practice listening to people, what they say, why they say it, and the reasoning behind there. And try to figure that out. That, my friends, is key to networking because now you get to refer them to people. It's key to addressing business issues because now you get to really understand what people's problems are or what it is that you could be able to work on, what you'd be able to help them complete and achieve. But the same thing comes true with working with people when it comes to achieving your own personal goals. Listen, because there might be a definite benefit to what they're trying to do and what you're trying to do. Now, the thing that's coming up, and we got a minute there. Let's pop this back on over here. Now, one of those groups that have really done a big thing for me.